we're going to show you slides from Gary's listing presentation. Yeah. Just taking one slide, one conversation is going to benefit what you're doing. And I know that'll happen, but there's something I want to point out for you guys is you must understand your listing presentation, the way you're representing yourself. You're doing a couple of things, right? So you are either going to continue building and cementing trust, or you're giving people either a conscious or subconscious reason to question your credibility. And I'm going to show you exactly how that happens in just a second. But we must master the pitch and the promise, because the pitch is how we communicate it, right? How we linguistically as well as visibly and emotionally represent ourselves, that's either going to build trust, right? That's the pitch. That's how, or it's going to have people question, right? It's going to question our competence if we're not good at the pitch. We also have to master the promises. We got to know what they want, and we have to master those promises. And Gary, you've been methodical in how you've handled this. I mean, you've specifically created slides to advance the conversation so that each promise builds on the next. And the only thing that we have to do at this point is just master the pitches, which is rehearsal, right? It's just
mastering the communication of the promises. And like Chris said, I've spent 22 years perfecting my listing presentation. We're going to take a look at a few of the slides here. Ask a question at the beginning of every slide. So, for example, number one is, people always want to know, how fast are you going to sell my house and for how much? It's basically us versus them. Chris, you're my seller, okay? Mm-hmm. Chris, do you like statistics?
They don't lie, right?
They don't lie. And you know what? I love statistics too, and I love these specific statistics because it always helps me gauge how well I am outperforming my competition in the marketplace, so that my clients ultimately make more money in the less amount of time. So let's take a look at what this looks like for you, Chris. Okay, so in Austin right now, on average, homes are selling. And by the way, everybody, we made these numbers up. Right now, on average, homes are selling in 48 days. Well, when you hire us and my firm at Creth Partners, on average, we're selling homes in 16 days. Now, that's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, a lot better. Now, also, in Austin right now, on average realtors are selling homes for 98.25% of their ask price. Now, that's not bad. And when you hire us at Creth Partners, on average, we're selling homes for 3.45% more than the average realtor. Now, let's take a look at what this means to you, Chris. Let's assume that we sell your house for $500,000 and we're earning you 3.45% more. On average, what that means, Chris, is we're going to make you $17,250 more than if you hire somebody else. Now, that's a lot of money, isn't that, Chris?
I think the key thing to remember here is this is the beginning of the promise. Remember I said that we got to master the pitch and the promise? We first must make a bold claim of what we're going to do. And what you're going to see in the following slides is we then follow up with the how, right? We got to explain to them. If you're going to make a bold claim, like I outperform the market, right? You must then provide them the evidence, the proof, the example of how that's going to take place. Because even though they might not say, well, how are you going to do that? They are wondering, well, I've heard this before. I wonder how they're going to do this or what makes them any different. Now, if we've sent that property marketing plan, they've got a little bit of it, but we got to follow through on the conversation and explain to everybody the rest of the pieces. So, a little script that you can use from that one is when you sell your home with my firm, on average, you'll earn X percent more, and then just take a moment to calculate what that means for them in actual dollars.
Always, always, always show what it means to them.
And, I shared this information with you guys before when we were talking about that property marketing plan that you would send out as part of your pre-listing packet is, what is it that sellers want from their real estate professional? Well, they want us to market the home to buyers. What we're going to do is we're just going to talk about the marketing. We mention it in the property marketing plan, but now we talk about it during the listing appointment, right? And so we just have a few slides that show where this is a show and tell process. This is why having something that's digital like this is so effective, because you can do the show and tell. Remember show and tell from kindergarten? What did you do? You went to kindergarten, you sat in a group, and you talked about stuff, and you showed something, and then you talked about it. And why was that effective? Because people like to look at stuff and listen. That's just the way it works. We are pre-programmed to enjoy that style of presentation. So when you can show them and then tell them what you're doing, it's more effective. Gary, you always say it's far more effective to show somebody, right? A master salesperson always shows somebody instead of telling somebody, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you show them this information, they begin to create their own interpretations of what that means to them in their own head. And so that's why we're showing them everything. In addition to that, it helps me remember what I need to talk about and the questions I need to ask them. So like Chris said, is that we need to make sure that we show them everything that we're going to do to market and sell their house online, because we perfected the pitch, and now we're making the promise, and we're showing them how we're going to deliver on this and to deliver what they want.
Back in the 90s, there were some interesting studies done by researchers who wanted to understand the power of linguistics and persuasion. Okay, so let me just pop this up for a second. So in the 90s, they did a bunch of research on trying to understand how does communication, and specifically the linguistics of our communication, the words that we're using, how we communicate those words, and how does it affect persuasion? And here's what they found. They found that it seems pretty obvious. The use of powerful language has a very positive effect on persuasion. But what was what was most eye-opening about that research and the studies that were done was not about the powerful language, but rather the unpowerful language. What do I mean by unpowerful language? It's when you're talking and you're using ums, ers, awkward silences, maybe not knowing what to do, awkward transitions, right? All of these things would be considered unpowerful language. And here's what they found. Both consciously and subconsciously, people were affected by somebody's use of those ums, awkward transitions. All of those things work to undermine the speaker or the presenter or that person's influence on the other individual. Wasn't intentional. They didn't mean to do it. But because of those ums, those ers, the listener, they automatically, subconsciously started to discount the credibility of the speaker. And what they found is, if you are going to be trying to influence somebody, and guess what? On a listing appointment, are you trying to influence somebody?
That's the whole purpose.
Absolutely. You are trying to persuade them to sign the agreement so that you are the one that they choose and work with. And so in order for this to work, in order to use powerful language, the only way to do this is practice. You must rehearse your pitch and your promise, i.e. your listing presentation, to remove those ums and ers and awkward transitions so that you don't inadvertently undermine yourself as the undisputed champion of listings in your marketplace, right?